Tonight, Israelis erupt in protest, unleashing new anger over the war after 6 hostages were found dead in Gaza.
The government that decided to sacrifice the lives of the hostages, they're all to blame.
Pressure on the Prime Minister to reach a ceasefire as a major labor union calls for a general strike. The first polio vaccines in a large-scale campaign in war-ravaged Gaza.
It's very encouraging that the start of the campaign is quite positive.
Important inroads for HIV support in the prairies.
Anything that's more targeted will definitely be a step in the right direction.
The program with an Indigenous focus. Plus, feeling swarmed near the end of summer.
People describe it as wasp season because they see a lot of these social wasps right now.
Why you might be seeing a wild number of wasps this season.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. There is anger and anguish on the streets of Israel. Tens of thousands demonstrating after 6 hostages were killed in Gaza. Israel's military says the bodies were located in a tunnel. The health ministry says autopsies show they were shot at close range a day or two earlier. Tonight, demonstrators clashed with police during massive protests that have swept across the country, some of the largest since October 7th, angry over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's inability to secure a ceasefire in exchange for the release of hostages. Reflecting the scale of public anger, the country's biggest labor union is now calling for a general strike. CTV's Jeremy Sharon starts us off.
Grief and anger in Israel tonight. Thousands hit the streets across the country in protest, outraged about the killing of 6 hostages discovered in Gaza by Israeli soldiers Saturday.
They could have come back alive. We need a deal now.
Whoever murders hostages does not want a deal, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today, calling Hamas a brutal enemy. The Israeli military says the bodies of 33-year-old Alex Lobanov, 24-year-old Eden Yerushalmi, 27-year-old Almog Sarusi, 40-year-old Carmel Gat, 23-year-old Hirsch Goldberg Polin, and 25-year-old Ori Danino were dumped in a tunnel in southern Gaza. CTV News spoke with Gat's cousin, who says she'll be remembered as a beautiful and loving woman.
She took care of the kidnapped the children. She did yoga with them when they were in the tunnels. She created diaries with them so they will know what day it is and what they're going through.
The parents of 27-year-old Sarusi held a funeral today. We love you and you will stay in our hearts, said his mother. News of the killings has families of remaining hostages even more on edge.
I feel like this is a turning point. And if you haven't spoken up yet, now is the time. Everyone can help save the 101 hostages.
As today calls for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to reach a hostage release deal grew louder.
This government only cares about herself and doesn't care about the hostages and their family and the people of Israel that wants everybody to be back.
Israel's largest trade union calling a general strike for Monday to pressure the government, a shutdown across major sectors of the economy from banking to healthcare and the main airport. A senior Hamas official said today the hostages would still be alive if Israel had accepted a U.S.-backed ceasefire proposal Hamas says it agreed to back in July. Heather?
All right, Jeremy, thank you. In Gaza today, the UN launched its much-anticipated campaign to vaccinate more than 600,000 children against polio.
Children are coming and they're really excited to receive the vaccination from the vaccinators here. So it's very encouraging that the start of the campaign is quite positive.
This first phase aims to reach more than 156,000 children over 3 days. The rollout relies on planned pauses in fighting between Israeli forces and Hamas fighters. The urgent push for vaccines comes after the first confirmed case of polio in Gaza in 25 years. Vaccinations will happen over 3 stages between now and September 12th. Also in Gaza today, more reports of casualties from the conflict. A hospital receiving the bodies of 4 Palestinians killed when a recent Israeli airstrike hit a car. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry reported a total of 89 deaths and 205 people wounded over a 24-hour period this weekend. And no pause in the hostilities in Ukraine. Today, rescuers were digging through the rubble of missile strikes in Kharkiv that left dozens injured. The city's mayor said more than 40 people were wounded by the Russian attack, which damaged a shopping center, a sports facility, and some homes. The attack comes after Russia says it intercepted more than 150 drones launched by Ukraine overnight. We're watching a political shift unfolding in Germany this weekend, where for the first time since the Second World War, a far-right party is projected to win a regional election. The anti-immigration Alternative for Germany party is on track to capture around 1/3 of the vote in the eastern state of Thuringia. Although other parties in the state have vowed not to welcome it into a coalition, the party is second in national opinion polls, and the result could be a message to Chancellor Olaf Scholz's fractious coalition ahead of next year's national election. Here at home, a shaky start to the morning in central Quebec, where a magnitude 4.6 earthquake rattled the region.
We get one in this seismic zone about approximately once every 5 or so days. Most of those, however, are very small and not felt at all. This was quite a large event for the region.
The earthquake was lightly felt in places including Montreal, Drummondville, and Trois-Rivières just before 6 a.m. No damage has been reported. Labor Day weekend is a popular time for cookouts and picnics, but across Canada lately, many of those meals are attracting unwanted guests. CTV's Christina Tenalia on the seasonal surge of wasps and the buzz they're creating this year.
There's a buzz right across the country. And if these blistering bugs have been, well, bugging you lately, you're not alone.
And I saw a swarm of them come out from underneath the deck.
This week, Amy Crawford discovered these intrusive insects right after her son was stung. About 3 hours north on this Edmonton golf course, the critters were a buzzkill.
I've been stung once already.
You can call this wasp season.
People see a lot of these social wasps right now that will go after our food. There's a higher risk of possibly getting stung.
What you're seeing or feeling are likely one of 2 members of the wasp family. Yellow jackets nest in the ground or in between walls, like in the bricks of your home or in other hidden locations.
We've had them in the eaves of our house.
Or bald-faced hornets. They create those big, paper-like nests. Social media users are often keen to share images of the structures, and homeowners may be eager to eliminate them.
You can see how busy we are.
The owner of this Toronto pest control company takes calls 7 days a week.
15 to 30 calls a day. They can bite you, they can sting you.
At this time of year, there's always going to be more.
Wasps are with us all year round, says this expert. But toward the end of the summer, the queen loses her strength and she relieves her worker bees of their duties. And that's when they buzz off from the nest and into our lives.
What they'll do is they'll start foraging for themselves.
Pop, fruit, candy, they'll show up where they can find food. And if you're thinking of saying bye-bye to these bugs, consider these so-called pests play an important role.
They are part of our ecosystem. They're predators, and they also help in pollination as well. If it's a nest up high in a tree, let it be.
The wasp season will wrap up by likely October. In the meantime, if you get stung, clean your skin with alcohol or soapy water. If they're swelling, seek medical attention. Christina Tenalia, CTV News, Toronto.
In a province that has the highest rate of HIV infection in the country, researchers in Saskatchewan are looking to improve the lives of those living with the virus. CTV's Alison Bamford on the program, hoping to bridge a healthcare gap with Indigenous communities.
It's not a death sentence like it used to be.
Tasha Akus sees the relief in people when they test negative for HIV, but she's also been there when the results turn positive.
It doesn't change the person that they are. You know, it just changes their condition.
New research out of the University of Regina hopes to improve the lives of those with the condition.
We are all aging and susceptible to age-related conditions, but the HIV virus itself can also cause distinct cognitive impairment.
Cognitive Remediation Group Therapy, or CRGT, is a program Andrew Eaton has been developing for a decade. It's already used in Toronto hospitals to reduce stress and improve memory, focus, and attention for those living with HIV. But he's looking to adapt it for Indigenous patients in Saskatchewan.
Acknowledging a person's culture and respecting their cultural norms and values and traditions is one major way that we can provide that sensitivity and safeness within healthcare.
Saskatchewan has the highest rate of new HIV diagnoses in the country, 4 times the national average, largely driven by injection drug use. That's where groups like this one come in, focusing on treatment, education, and prevention, offering safe, clean drug supplies through an inner-city needle exchange program.
Last year, we distributed over 650,000 needles.
Progress on curbing HIV rates has slowed since the pandemic, but there's hope Eaton's research can lead to better treatment options.
Anything that's more targeted, that's more effective, that is more acceptable, will definitely be a step in the right direction.
Eaton is in the middle of consulting First Nations and Métis elders to adapt the program, with a goal to have the culturally sensitive CRGT running within a year. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
In the U.S., federal investigators are trying to unravel the story behind a fiery and deadly plane crash in an Oregon neighborhood.
So it was a huge explosion that pretty much rocked the whole area.
3 people were killed when the small twin-engine aircraft slammed into a row of townhouses in Portland, setting the homes on fire. The plane also knocked over a power pole, sparking another fire. The local fire chief says there didn't appear to be a mayday call from the aircraft. Coming up, blowing the whistle on university sports.
We're going to see less students coming from out of province, I think in like 3 to 4 years.
Tuition hikes put penalties on out-of-province athletes. Plus, hotel chaos as thousands walk off the job. An NFL player who was shot in broad daylight in San Francisco yesterday has been released from hospital. Shocking video shows a 49ers rookie Ricky Pearsall clutching his chest and walking to a stretcher after he was shot. Police said the 23-year-old was the victim of an attempted armed robbery. Online, Pearsall's mother said he's in good spirits and that the bullet exited through his back, missing his vital organs. A 17-year-old suspect was also shot and is in police custody. Canada clinched 2 more silver medals at the Paralympics today. 28-year-old Oriel Rivard medaled in the women's 100-meter freestyle. It's her second win after capturing bronze in the 50-meter freestyle. And wheelchair racer Brent Lakatos claimed silver in the men's T53 400-meter final, finishing in 47.24 seconds. And it's deja vu for organizers. The Paralympic triathlon was postponed over poor water quality in the River Seine. All 11 races were scheduled for today, but heavy rain led to high bacteria levels. The races are pushed to tomorrow pending further tests. The men's individual triathlon was delayed during the Olympic Games under similar circumstances. University sports teams say Quebec's tuition hikes for out-of-province students feels like a penalty. They worry rosters in the years to come won't have the diversity of players they need. CTV's Olivia O'Malley reports.
When the Concordia men's soccer team takes the field this season, its roster is going to look a little different.
We have a great group of guys that are great players, but it's definitely more focused on Quebec talent.
That's the case on the court as well. Point guard Sami Jahan says all the team's rookies are from Quebec. He worries it will impact the locker room.
It's just more like the diversity on the team, more like the locker room presence, the chemistry within the team will just be less diverse.
As of this semester, new out-of-province and international students will have to pay significantly more to study in Quebec. And athletes say that's taking a toll, even though Concordia's athletics department is still actively recruiting out-of-province students.
Our coaches have had to be realistic in our recruitment, so we're probably recruiting a little heavier in Quebec than we have in the past, but it would be foolish not to reach out to recruits that are outside of Quebec.
Teams that rely heavily on players from outside Quebec include women's hockey, soccer, and rugby. Associate Athletic Director Graham McGravy says the Stingers are not feeling the full effects yet, but he expects it to come next year.
We're going to see less students coming from out of province. I think in like 3 to 4 years, you'll see a greater impact. Like I said, when you have the same price point from everywhere else, it's only natural that people will look for alternatives.
Concordia says enrollment is down nearly 30% for out-of-province students and 11% for international students. The university adds it's missing out on $15 million because of tuition hikes.
The government's definitely put a black cloud over the English universities.
Back on the turf, midfielder Jacob Green says potential future teammates are already choosing to go elsewhere.
I have a lot of friends that have either wanted to come from the States or considered it, and after the hikes, not really seeing it as a possibility anymore.
Montreal's 2 English universities are still challenging the tuition hikes. Concordia has a court date scheduled for December in the hopes it's not game over just yet. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News.
Still ahead, not ready to hang up. The humble payphone hanging on as Canadians switch to cell phones. More turbulence could be on the radar at Boeing. More than 30,000 of the aerospace company's workers are on the verge of a strike. A union leader says the two sides are far apart on a range of issues, with the current contract set to expire next week. Boeing says it will continue to bargain in good faith, and it's confident a deal can be reached. The company has faced several other challenges, including fatal crashes, design flaws, and slumping aircraft sales. Another strike may be noticeable if you're traveling to the U.S. this fall. Some 10,000 hotel workers walked off the job today, a preview of what could be a larger strike by housekeepers and desk staff at top hotel chains in several cities. Workers say they're fighting for higher wages and a reversal of staffing and service cuts made during the pandemic. Something you're likely seeing less often in your travels these days is the payphone. They're disappearing from the landscape, but they're not all gone. And despite a big shift in the way we communicate, there's an argument that it's not time to hang up on this one just yet. CTV's Kathy Lee explains.
The humble payphone, now a rare sight, but these relics of communication nostalgic.
I was still living in Ontario then. I believe I was at Union Station.
I can remember using a payphone when I was a roadie for Heart back in the 70s. It's amazing they're still around.
Still around, but just not as many. The telecommunications landscape much changed since the first payphone was installed in Hamilton, Ontario 143 years ago. From 2013 to 2022, CRTC data shows a 78% decrease in payphones. Only about 19,000 exist countrywide.
I don't really notice them at all.
Even Hamilton's own Arkells, marking the death of them in one of their songs. One of the latest to disappear, this one in Kananaskis, a popular recreational area in Alberta out of cell range. It's to be replaced with a free community phone.
I understand it's a challenge to make them pay for themselves.
In fact, from 2013 to 2022, annual revenue per payphone dropped 66%, says the CRTC. Still, Experts say don't hang up on payphones just yet. They are necessities, especially for low-income Canadians, tourists, and in various emergencies.
During an extreme weather event or forest fires where the cell phone infrastructure, for whatever reason, might be less reliable.
And if not in the traditional form, perhaps one that operates a bit differently.
New York City replaced their payphones with Wi-Fi hotspots that also have a calling function.
A call on this will never compete with this. And even if the payphone isn't needed for many Canadians, for old time's sake.
Next time you see one, try to use it.
Definitely. First of all, I have to borrow some change from somebody because nobody who carries change.
Because it might just be fun to go down memory lane. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
After the break, buried beneath. Historic vessels reemerge as the sands of time wash away. Finally for us tonight, a look at history once hidden by sand. Lost sailing vessels along the shoreline of a small Nova Scotia community have been unearthed by erosion. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth takes us on a trip back in time.
On the shores of the Avon River, 80 kilometers northwest of Halifax, Mother Nature has uncovered rich layers of 19th century maritime history.
3 ships that are buried here in the sand.
88-year-old Wilfred Ogilvie says about 100 years ago, 3 wooden ships were tied up here, eventually left to rot. One of the vessels, a 3-masted sailing ship called the Hamburg, was built across the river in Hantsport, Nova Scotia. She had a towering hull, looming large on this beach.
Well, she was 200 feet long and 40 feet wide.
All 3 ships, the Hamburg included, caught fire in 1936.
That's all that's left buried in the sand here is just from the water line down.
Over the decades, silt and sand mixed with the ebb and flow of the tides buried these ships. Then, after recent flooding, the sand washed away and the Hamburg slowly reappeared. Her hull is now visible for all to see. Pieces of other ships are also popping up along the beach.
Those old barges are getting close to 200 years old because they were built in early 1800s.
This is more than just an uncovered historic treasure. It's a link to a long ago time when this area in Nova Scotia was known for being a prosperous shipbuilding community.
Nova Scotia was a leader in shipping in the 1800s, building the boats, merchandising the boats.
They sailed all over the world, hauling cargo to and from faraway places.
They'd take wood or something else from here, and then coming back, they'd get a load of something over there to bring back.
The Hamburg re-emerging from the sand is like revisiting a forgotten era.
It was a busy little spot here way back years ago.
It allows visitors to be transported back to the time of wooden sailboats, when the towns along this river rode the wave of the shipbuilding boom of the 19th century. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Somerville, Nova Scotia.
Some fascinating history. That is our newscast for this Sunday. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Omar is here tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your long weekend. Good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.